meeting to order at 6:06. I move to not divulge non-public minutes of the information likely would render the purpose of action ineffective.
Yes.
Need a second. Who seconded that?
Second.
Okay.
Boston, yes. Rock.
Yep.
Paul.
Yes.
Virgil, yes. Okay. Now I need I gotta re-approve this agenda. I've already approved it once.
You have, but I think you should do it in open session
Okay.
because I have something that actually needs
All right, what would you like to add?
business, which would be the police chief, that you asked him to come to this meeting to give you an update. So that needs to be added to the business, his recommendations.
What do we got?
Old business police chief.
Oh, Bay Hill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, can I get an approval?
I make a motion to approve the agenda for August 2nd,
I'll
2021 as amended.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Announcements. The public participation policy applies to all selectmen's meetings. A copy of it is on the back of each agenda posted in this meeting room and on our website. Public input, 3 minutes. Yeah, then, there you go.
Okay.
Seeing none. Yes.
Two things that are on here is under new business, item 1. Unfortunately, when we started Roberts Cove Road, when we built on Roberts Cove Road last year, we could not find phase 1 plans. Phase 1 plans actually had the borings. So this is a great idea to go back and do the borings because all the ledge down in front of the Jaggers and coming up out of the basin on that right-hand side, trying to control the water to the basin rather than hearing it from Camp DeWitt and the camp area. That's one. And the other one is you're going to discuss a rental property amendments. Here's a thought. We rent out town property, whether it's in the Bay or it's community center or it's everywhere else. Why can't any of that money go into a revolving fund to maintain the property rather than going someplace else with it? Why put it into the slush fund and then have to draw out of it later? Why can't there's revolving accounts and then rather than going to the taxpayers for the full gain, that you could actually utilize whatever you do between the craft fairs, the rental of the community center, rental of the Pearson Road Community Center, bring a revolving fund. It may not be a lot, but at least it'll be something. So only a thought process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. No appointments. Old business police chief. Mr. Ryan.
Good evening, everybody. So I went over, the town administrator sent me an email recapping some of the comments and questions and decisions of the board based on Bay Hill Road. And my understanding is to come back up and talk about some of that. I do need a little bit of clarification on a few things that I hope, as far as the signage is concerned, because there was 3 types of signage mentioned. There was the 6-ton weight limit. There was no through trucking. And then there was a seasonal or weather advisory sign for no through traffic for the winters. All 3 of those something the board is wishing to do, or were they leaning towards one or the other? Mainly between the trucking, I mean, between 6-ton or no through trucking. Those are, we got to decide, is there a weight limit or is it just no through trucking period? So those are one of the things that I wanted to clarify with you folks tonight. Yeah.
I think we have to try and make it as plain as and simple. We don't want to get it too confusing, like some other signs we have in town.
Right.
East Side Drive, they can get a little confusing down there. But the 6-ton load limit
Should do it.
should do that.
It
Yeah.
should, putting
Yeah.
that back on
Yes,
instead of putting the 20% slope sign,
right.
instead of no through trucking, putting the 6-ton limit on it, it pretty much explains that.
Right.
And that's enforceable, correct?
Correct. Well, it's enforceable, but you guys need to take another step. And that was another thing I need to talk about
Okay.
is just approving the signs. We have to amend the town ordinance and have a public hearing on the town ordinance. Because right now, when we had the public hearing years ago, not that long ago, when they removed everything, that in itself took it out of the ordinance. But even when it took it out, there was no enforcement, there was no fines associated to it. Like when we have like, say for instance, nuisance dog, our town ordinance says first offense, $100, second offense, $150. We have to outline that because this is not a state statute that we're enforcing. It's a local ordinance that's being put in place. So we have to modify and we have to make sure that that language goes into our ordinance. The good thing about it is when we enforce it under the ordinance, all monies come back to the town. So when we write a state ticket or off a state RSA, nothing comes back to the town. It goes to the courts and to police standards and training, which isn't a bad thing too, because it needs to be supported as well. But it would be nice if we had our local ordinances supporting it, because we're going through the same issue right now too with, a while back, I come up about the parking issues, all the trailer parking and things like that. And unfortunately, because our town ordinance has never been amended, our local ordinance for parking violations is $5.
Mhm.
And you guys all know
That
that
is-
boat trailer parking in the bay is worth $5 all day long. And that's what I've heard from a lot of people.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, so it,
Going up to the court.
no, it's just not a deterrent. And that's what a fine is. I'm sorry. A consequence is a deterrent. And we have to have a realistic current fine, something current and up to date in those, in the highway. Well, right now it's all under the highway department policy ordinance. And I had a brief conversation with Scott today by the phone too, discussing the same matter. And there's a few things that we need to mesh in back into the ordinance and straighten out some language. So this would be a good time to do it. But I wanted to make sure I discussed that and it was very clear with the board that right now we can move forward, put the signage up.
Mhm.
We can stop people for the sign. Signage, but there's no, so
That would be in the future.
as of right now,
As of right
until
now.
the ordinance is taken care of. So we shouldn't wait too long for that,
You
but
want to put that on next week's agenda?
We should,
That's the ordinance and the fines.
we should.
So we're done. So it's, by the time we
Yeah,
get signs
we-
up and stuff, we're ready to go.
that could be, let me ask real quick, do you think
Next week,
we can get that done?
Too soon?
We kind of probably need 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, there's some stuff to go through. There's a lot of
Okay.
pages there, so I want to make sure we're thorough with it.
Some of the things, if I may.
Yeah.
Some of the things that we discussed also was, of course, the signage of seasonal signage or should I say inclement weather that we have discussed in the past.
Sure.
And there was a determination that that was a pretty good idea to do that, whether it was we're putting it up seasonal or keeping it up year round. At both ends. We also discussed, of course, the time period between like saying November 1st to April 1st or April 2nd. Do not use Bay Hill Road during inclement weather, that type of thing.
we just put closed on inclement weather.
Or we could do that as well. But that was what was discussed.
Mhm.
And also to move the signage, some of the time, what the big discussion was, is when you're already turned the corner and already committed, a lot of times people won't back up the hill, or you can't if it's ice and everything. If we can get it closer to the 28 side and down the bottom of the hill, so people are aware of it before they're committed into actually going into the roadway.
No, that's definitely a good point, and I agree with it. The seasonal sign, I would definitely recommend that it's posted year round. It's a permanent sign.
I'd rather
If
see.
you're gonna
it
put a seasonal one, people should see it all the time.
I agree.
Instead of it, because it's gonna be committed to memory that way. When it disappears for 3 or 4 months during the year,
It's
I
forgotten.
forget all about it.
I personally would
Um,
like to see it year round. And that was my motion, was basically was to maybe to keep it year round.
I will say my suggestion is this is just my 2 cents worth. I honestly, if we were gonna go in that direction, I'd like to see it just close to no through trucking period all year long. No 6-ton limit, no through trucking. The only reason why I say it is it simplifies everything. It reduces the amount of sign, because we're gonna have a hard time. We already have a hard time finding one location for a sign, let alone multiple signs.
Oh, I know.
And getting them closer. My only thought with that is from all the stuff that I've heard from the public and in the public meetings, nobody's ever disputed Bay Hill Road's not a trucking.
No.
Nobody has ever disputed that
Nobody
fact.
has.
I've never heard anything to the contrary from anybody. And those are people that truck for a living. I've never heard contrary, So I really don't think there's any dispute there that if we just went ahead and shut it down to no through trucking period.
I think what Paul's coming from is you want automobiles also. through.
Well, that's what it was. And see, that's
And-
that's the trouble with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, he's talking all traffic.
Well, the only problem with that is you really can't.
You can't shut down.
You
Well,
really
the
can't
thing
enforce
is that if you put a sign up like that, that'd be cautionary.
It's
It
just
would.
cautionary.
more than
That
any,
particular sign. See, there's been most of the complaints, and you know that.
Mhm.
And as far, you've even done a survey on the road.
Sure.
And of the accidents over the last 10 years. And that was the ones that were reported. There's been numerous ones that haven't been.
Yep.
Just little fender benders that coming down the hill. It's just a matter of stopping to slow down the flow of traffic that are not used to coming down Bay Hill in inclement weather. I mean, if there's ice or snow, I mean, the town's done fantastic to sand it and plow it. But when it only takes an inch and a half of ice and snow on that road to make it treacherous
Yes.
from the top of the
Absolutely.
hill down. So that was the intent, was to slow down that traffic and the through trucking.
Okay.
So it was kind of the two.
And we could stick with where we're at,
Caution.
or if you want to just go with with no through trucking period.
See, I
Year
like
round,
that
and then
idea.
add in the cautionary sign that says, during caution,
Mhm.
not suitable for through traffic in inclement weather.
Mhm.
Something along those lines. We could even do a larger square sign with dual posts to make it stand out a little bit more. I mean, I'm sure the public works director might have some good ideas too
Mhm.
with different signage that he's seen or dealt with.
We don't want to
And,
flood it
and,
with
and
signs.
no, and I don't have a problem either way. I'm just saying that really 6-ton, there's really not a lot of call for
Mhm.
splitting the difference with a weight limit.
Uh-huh.
I think that road is basically earned enough of a reputation that
Oh,
no
yeah.
through checking should just be a no through trucking.
No through trucking.
I agree with it.
That's fine.
Mhm.
And
I agree with
if
that.
we have to make a motion on that is to do that instead of just the 6-ton,
Mhm.
either way, it works.
Mhm.
Well,
It-
that was pretty much the meaning
Consensus.
of the meeting too. The consensus of the meeting was
No through trucking in that
Oh.
particular,
Right.
so it was just understood, not clear on whether you needed the 6-ton limit sign and that or not. So you removed
If
it.
you just do no
removed
through
the 6.
trucking, there's not a weight limit associated with it. And it also alleviates the judgment call sometimes when the truck's coming down. I mean, officers aren't usually truck drivers or might have that much familiarity. So then they're trying to figure out how much the truck weighs when you get a box truck coming down or something along those lines. So, the no through trucking just simplifies everything. And then obviously for the board's sake and for the public that's listening right now, that would discount anybody that has a legitimate
Right.
delivery on that road.
Work on their
So
property.
if any of the property owners ask, does that mean I can't get my septic worked on or get a load of loam? No, that's, as long as they can show that they have a legitimate delivery on that road, there won't be any
Yes.
issues with that. So,
But then we have the springtime posting of the 6-ton.
those will be completely different. They come on
I
those
know.
temporary signage.
Yep.
We'll make sure that the language in the highway manual too already has the language in it for the spring seasonal ones. But we'll make sure that the fines are current as well too.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that we had the 6-ton limit signs that were up, and then the temporaries would go up besides.
Sure.
So,
Gonna have hefty fines if it comes back to the town.
There you go.
Also at that public hearing on the roads, there was one, if I remember right, one gentleman Lives down by you, I think, Paul.
Mhm.
Had a
Oh,
child,
Yes.
and he asked about possibly some kind of a sign for,
Mhm. No, that was the,
I know, I
that was the
seen
blind driveway sign.
Yeah, was it a blind
It was a
driveway?
blind driveway sign that was up there. I don't believe the town had put that up. I think that was originally done by a resident
And I think
originally, but the sign is back up.
It's back up now.
Mhm.
Okay.
And-
Yeah, well, it's a good point that, just so everybody knows that there are signage around. Anybody can walk into one of these sign shops and order a sign. You
Yes.
don't have to like be a town or a facility. So we've seen signs pop up that were like, where did that come from? And all of a sudden, and yes, it's somebody.
There was
who's gotten
also
creative.
talk about putting, remember, that same gentleman mentioned about a crosswalk, which there isn't a site of visibility around the corner or up. You can look up 200 feet. I don't even know if you can go up 200 feet and where the corner is
Yeah.
and down by the bottom. So I don't
Yeah, you
I
can't
don't
have a
think that's
crosswalk without sidewalks anyway.
Yeah,
Right,
the big
exactly.
issue is you gotta have the ADA ramps now, so you'd
Right.
have to have the
That's a
sidewalks.
the
in.
point was coming out of that driveway where the blind driveway is, you walk down across the street, then you go down the stairs to the beach. And that's what they were talking about.
Oh,
right
okay,
there.
yeah.
But that's also where the blind driveway sign
Hmm.
would be, people coming up there.
Yeah, that would create a liability nightmare, because if you think there's enough justification for a blind drive and you put a sidewalk right there, somebody's gonna get whacked on the sidewalk. Then it's gonna be a question of, is it the driver's fault, is it the pedestrian's fault? So, yeah, that definitely probably not, like you said, line of sight issue.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
The only other thing was the speed limit it's 25 miles per hour and
Right.
We'd like to up it to 55.
55.
It is when you coast.
By the time you get to Paul's house. you're doing
Yeah, when you get
55.
sliding down the hill, you pick up speed pretty fast.
Yes, absolutely. Done that a few times in the Crown Vic.
Done it in a truck.
Yeah, thank God I had the plow on.
Yeah,
Catch the snowbank and slow down.
All
absolutely.
right.
All right.
So did you guys have any other questions about the hill or any of the other concerns or anything?
No, I think that works.
Okay,
No, we
so we'll go with that.
set
So
up an ordinance.
Scott and I will get together. We'll get something together for the ordinance policy, get copies or drafts out to Liz or for you guys to look at. And
And let us know about that, second sign we were talking about.
the seasonal.
Yes.
Yeah,
Seasonal.
yeah. We'll see if we can come up with some language for that.
Keeping that up year round is much better.
I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
And the other thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but what we could do is develop some signage, some cautionary signage, put up the no through trucking sign and then put the cautionary on the same pole below it.
Mhm.
You think that's, because we may run into problems with having two signs, because you're gonna want to get both of them out as close as you can, like you said.
To
And
20.
if we put multiple out, it's gonna distract drivers to look at one or the other. Put them on the same pole. I think it'll capture it a little bit
Yes.
better, so we can work
Yes.
on that.
Today I put the 6-ton weight limit sign, and the pole was closest to 28. Anticipation that there would probably be some other kind of sign, either trucking or whatever was boards. Talking to chief, probably want that, and I didn't know if, company would stay.
Be nice to get it right up next to the highway.
Yeah, so that pole there.
As far up as possible.
You just turn in, you still have the opportunity to stop
Mhm.
and turn around, and granted,
Well, that's the problem is once they start to pull in, they don't want to back out on that highway.
yeah. So the only place they could turn around right now would be in where the water supply is.
Right.
That access going in there, they could actually back.
We do.
All right.
So if you want, we can, because I'm assuming we have to order the no through trucking signs, right? Sure, you probably don't know.
I think there is a symbol and then maybe some highway.
Okay.
I'd have to look. I know there's some no through traffic or no trucks. On that, but
But we'll talk later about that then. If that's with you, he already put the 6-ton up. We'll leave it up right now until we have the other signage in hand.
At least
to
it's
swap it
something
out.
there.
Yeah,
for
at
now.
least it's something. Yep.
Correct.
And we
Thank you.
can go ahead and we'll leave that in place and then, but I think the board should might want to take a vote on that
Mhm.
to make sure that we're good before we order signs. So we want
Yeah,
to do.
I was just going to mention, if you're going to change the highway regs or the ordinance for the parking,
We'll have to have a public hearing.
right, but it needs to be posted a certain number of days beforehand. So the normal method is they bring the proposals to you.
Mhm.
And then you're okay with it, and then we go ahead
You'll
and
post it.
schedule the public hearing, and then you'll have the public
Following
hearing.
meeting, we'll post it.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll get the draft. Well, once we finish up something,
So we'll set you up for
Send
a
it up
couple
to
of,
you.
couple of weeks is enough.
Thank you.
once Scott gets done drafting it. No.
Thanks.
Couple of weeks is enough, right?
We've
Scott?
confused you
For
enough by
their
now.
work,
Yeah,
for their
Yeah.
to
work,
bring it back in front of us.
Right.
Because I want to get it on the agenda so we
right?
get it moving.
So 2 weeks is enough time.
I think so. We glazed through it today,
No,
but
3, 2 or
we'll get-
3,
no. Two,
we can bring.
3 weeks is
But
public
don't-
hearing.
Don't tell me.
3 weeks, public hearing.
Said he,
If it can be done in 2
things
weeks.
happen like
Okay.
floods.
So, yeah, no, we'll start digging into it. If for some reason there's some things we need to sort out and it gets a little more involved, we'll get up with Liz and let her know ahead of time so she can bring it, let the board know if we run into complications, but we should be good with doing that.
Thank you.
Now, since we're doing it, actually now, that brings up one other thing. Well, the issue is, so did the board, I didn't see anything in there where you made any decisions to take any other actions on any other roads? Okay, is that
No.
still part of discussion or are we?
There was still a decision that was made on Old Whooper Road.
Oh, that was okay.
Go decision on
Yes,
it.
we did.
Yeah,
Check.
there was that no tractor trailer.
No 18 wheelers.
18.
No 18 wheelers.
On the lower half?
From 28 to the village, that short run.
Okay,
That was the determination that did not need 18 wheelers going down there, but box trucks were okay. And as far as there was nothing any further that was squashed for Stockbridge Corner Road.
so do you think we're good with that situation with the 6-ton limit where it would permit a box truck versus 18-wheeler? I'm not aware of any signage that, I've never seen any signage that just restricts 18-wheelers.
So you'd have to, I would imagine you would have to actually put a tractor trailer,
No tractor trailer.
and it wouldn't define the number of tires, it just meant that it's a tractor, truck, trailer.
Scott,
That would
can you come up to the mic?
Sorry.
That would also,
Thank you.
yeah, that would also include, I think, Chief, it would probably include, even if you had somebody had a 10-wheel dump truck and he was towing an equipment trailer behind it, that would be considered to be a tractor and a trailer,
Tag along.
with a tag along on it. So,
Mhm.
for enforceability, that way your people would know if they saw,
Yeah,
either or
Yep.
versus counting tires,
yeah, definitely.
in that situation there, because,
Can we get an ordinance when you're writing that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought it up,
Yeah.
because any changes that you guys wanted to make, it's all in the same ordinance, so
Right.
we'll go ahead and incorporate that into
Heck
the
yeah.
ordinance as well.
That's how that went.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but as far as Powder Mill or Stockbridge, there wasn't anything else taken on?
Powder Mill was not discussed.
Okay,
Stockbridge
It
was.
was only those 3 roads.
okay,
As far as Stockbridge Corner Road, no change.
okay. All right, so then we'll concentrate on those 2 changes, the signage, and go from there. Sure, there might be some other things you want to clean up in there. We'll take a look at. So,
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Gonna watch out for that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, better not go far.
Yeah,
You meant
better get back
Highway
up there.
Department,
Not you. You can go home.
Roberts Cove Road, exploratory boring.
So you have a memo relative to, I reached out in regards to getting a quote for borings on Roberts Cove Road. For this would be for the section that is still to be completed. And as you heard from Mr. Roberts, that was something that certainly he expressed to me was something that needed to be explored and looked at relative to the ledge issues on that road. So basically we'll try to, it'll be about a day's worth of borings. Some of those will be for the ledge exploration as to where based on the geology of the area, I guess, or topography of the area, where we feel is going to benefit us the most on the ledge. And then there'll be some other subgrade soil borings that'll also happen to establish what the subsoils are below the pavement there. This way you have a little bit of an understanding as to what that is, as to how we may go about that reconstruction of that section of road. From what I understand, that reconstruction, rehab, however you'd like to define it. But that is scheduled to have that done. Some of those areas, if in fact the subgrade soils below the pavement show that they have some need for additional structural support because they've been rutted over the years, or drainage may become an issue. As you may know, out of the basin, there is some spring activity as you come into the basin from the Alton side versus the Wolfboro side. There is a spring that's pretty active right now, especially with all the water that we've had. So that is probably going to necessitate some under drain through that area. That'll be helpful to have some of that exploratory work done.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yes.
How long do you think the borings, this is going to take as a whole to do the test borings?
They're going to schedule it for one day.
One day?
We'll try to, I'd like to get them in as soon as possible because of preparing budgets and such there for next year. I've made some,
But I'm looking at this additional costs. Rental charges for a steam cleaner, generator, core machine, and jackhammers. We might as well rent them ourselves and do the boring.
but generally, if in fact you're asking them to do any additional work when you're out in the field, those would be the additional costs that you would end up having. My experience has been in using these companies. They come in, they do the boring. Generally, we end up assisting them with traffic control during the time that they're there. It's always nice to be on site or have a staff person on site, so you actually get to see what's actually coming out with the borings, even though they do a report for you afterwards. But they put in these extra, if in fact it gets into some problem areas, or we ask them to do additional work, then that's the reason why they put in a lot of these additional cost issues that come up. I don't anticipate we would be holding them right now to what we have prescribed out there. I'll be doing some preliminary marking so that they have an idea as to the areas that we're looking at. And then they're all going to be done within the asphalt itself. And we will work with the police department relative to making sure they're comfortable with the traffic control plan that we'll have.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think it's something we should definitely do. Probably should have done it more often in the past, but that's okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendations of both the Public Works Director and the Town Administrator to expend $2,348.10 to New England boring contractors for boring on Roberts Cove Road.
Second. That, if I can just add, Mr. Chairman, that'll come from the road.
Reconstruction. Discussion. All those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, good job. I guess. You're all set. Thank you.
You,
Oh, he's up.
I'm gonna- I was gonna-
He's up next
I was
again.
gonna
Him and
stay here
Kelly.
with
Max and
Kelly
Rex.
just to
Kelly.
be her cohort in
Oh,
crime.
you're gonna be here with Parks and Recs? Oh, okay.
Covert.
I'm teamed up with all these people.
Good
You
man.
can't get rid of me that easy. see?
It's gonna be a permanent.
They
seat
still
for
like
you.
me, I think.
Give it time, give it time.
Tippy chair though.
That's okay. Did you want Kelly to speak on this? at all?
Yes,
Explain.
yeah, that's what I'm looking. Go ahead, Cal.
So
Sorry about that.
there's a memo here with a recommendation.
Mhm.
This is for the Alton Bay Community Center roof replacement project. 14 contractors were sent the bid. 2 bids were received. 1 bid was incomplete. So the recommendation is to award the bid to bidder number 1 here. And the recommended bid award was with a 10% contingency is $22,330. The deadline would be October 29th, 2021. And also the references were positive and it included municipal projects.
Square shingles was on that roof.
That's what I was gonna ask. It's nowhere on here to say how many square.
Yeah. I can't find it.
As to the type of shingle,
No,
No, how many square?
how many square?
It's usually
We
base.
did not specify as to how many squares. They have to put the squares on, with an RFP, they're required to make sure that they
Put a roof on.
put a roof on.
Put
it.
a roof on. Generally, and it's nice to
I
know
think that's
how
the-
many square, that's usually generally how it's figured. The job is figured by the square.
That's a pretty expensive bid, 20 grand.
So it depends on how many, what they're, you see an actual a hourly rate, but it's not saying how much they're getting per square.
Right.
So if it was 20 square, if it's 30 square, is it $500 a square? Is it $350 a square? Is it $700 a square? That's,
It was basically just bid out to bid the price. It didn't specify, it didn't break it down.
mhm.
Specs.
If we were doing unit pricing based upon, similar to when you put out a bid specification for Church and School Street, you put out unit pricing for each one of those. We did not put out unit pricing in this. We put out as to what items that we wanted to make sure that they covered in their proposal. So that's how we put it together. And we have followed up and put in here what type of shingles and ice and water shield they're gonna use.
That part's all fine.
All those materials there. I will tell you that, I made a few phone calls on this, just because I know some of the communities and the town administrators in those communities. These people they're above board. And these are people that, they are fully OSHA compliant. They've got all the harnesses and tethers
So,
and when you're down there in the bay, you want to make sure that you have somebody that's doing that project is making sure that they are completely code compliant. And I realize they are more expensive bid than your low bidder.
$800 more.
Well, not only that, but these guys that's not their job to get up there and measure a roof, how many square a roof is. That's what the contractor's there for. You
No,
can't
no,
say,
I know
Kelly,
that.
get up on the roof and tell me
No,
how
I
many
know
square
that.
this roof is.
So-
I see what you're saying. We want to know what the square, what they want per square, but it's kind of. their job to give us-
Generally, and it wasn't in the specs, so it wasn't in the bid specs. But generally you get an idea of how many square of shingles there are. That used to be how everybody bids on a roof,
Should say
whether
right in
it's,
the bid.
whether it's a strip roof or a new roof. This is what we get per square for this roof. This is what we get per square for this kind of roof.
Yeah, and that would be.
It's usually explained. I'm not asking either of you to go up there and measure it.
Right.
They measure the
Should have
roof.
been in the bid.
They could have said, okay, you need 25 square, you need 30 square shingles. We're gonna strip and relay, inspect the roof, inspect the boarding. Obviously, they have to have a buffer in there in case if they have to replace boarding or plywood the roof. And then they're putting the not felt paper down, but they're putting the papers down that are needed and the ice and water shield that's needed. But generally, you get an idea of what they're getting per square. This way here, they're just giving a bid price. And that's just, it's not the norm.
Okay.
A lot of times you will get the, not all the time, but most time you'll get how many square shingles there are
Okay.
and what they're getting per square.
I think part of that is, I mean, I know, you folks are in the trade business. And, residentially, if I had somebody coming to my house,
Mhm.
I know how many square it's gonna take, either that or I'd ask who's coming to put it on my building
Mhm.
as to what that's going to be. We did not ask people to provide that in the specifications as far as their bid proposals. So, that's the reason why we don't have that information.
And it may not be far off. I mean,
Right.
it's probably right on. I was just curious.
I can tell you that these projects and, some of them can be higher in municipal settings and also in historic buildings as well, because of some of the other care that needs to be done in some of those applications. Some of mine, keeping things cleaned up and everything. And this company that's being recommended was certainly doing that
Mhm.
in their municipal applications as well as in the historic boathouse.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, just to note that it is a 2-day project.
Mhm.
I thought, or we thought that was a good time.
Oh, it is. It is. They'll have a large crew. They'll knock it right out.
I just had a question, Mr. Chairman, on the contingency. In case they gotta replace some roofing, or sheathing, or whatever.
You found that you do have rotted sub boards there. I mean, from what I understand, that most likely that's a planked type
Yes.
of roof
Oh, yeah.
that's up there, and
it
you do
is.
have protrusions through the roof. Potentially, there could be some damage up around there. That's the reason why we did ask about the hourly rate so that's what they would charge you on an hourly rate to make those repairs.
Mhm.
And we would work with them relative to whether or not, we wanted them to buy the product, or if we were buying the product, I mean, if all they need is a 4x8 sheet of, plywood,
Mhm.
for an example, or some boards, we may be able to supply them, and then they would do the labor to install it. But that's something we would work out. That's the reason for the contingency.
Okay, I just want to make sure, though, they don't go and do extra work without approval from,
So that's part of it. That would be
Yeah.
part of the award condition, that any additional
okay.
would have to be approved by, the project manager or
Yep.
Kelly.
No, I mean, everything looks good. The only question I have is I didn't see anything in here, replacement of any drip edge.
The building has drip edge on it. I did notice that when I was there.
It does.
And in the.
It has to be replaced or not.
In the
Should be.
specifications, it does say to replace as to what is actually there
Mhm.
On the building. But I did notice that they didn't actually spell that out in their.
No, they didn't.
Their items. I mean, we can-
Generally, when you do a re-roof like that and stripping it, generally you would replace the drip edge.
I've never seen a
It's
roofing
listed.
company don't. It
You'd,
doesn't.
you'd replace all the drip edge and then all the new ice and water shield and then the paper on top of that.
Yeah,
The
we can-
products are all,
We can make sure that.
Yeah, I can double check that
if you could, please.
if we can. Yeah.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Chairman? Make a motion. We award the bid to
Peter DeSalvo.
yeah,
DeSalvo.
Peter
The salvo.
DeSalvo Contracting of Hudson, New Hampshire, for the roof project down at the
That's
bay.
this one. It was in.
And the total figure will be it'd be $22,332. $30, excuse me.
I'll second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Scott. All right, new business. American Rescue Plan, assurance of compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 64.
So I asked for this to be put onto the agenda, and I've asked our finance manager to be here. This has to do with reimbursement from the state of federal funds called the American Rescue Plan for things that happen during the state of emergency, qualifying things that happen during the state of emergency, because before we can apply and be reimbursed, the board has to be okay with that process. Laura, would you like to add to that? You may need to bring your microphone down a little bit.
Basically, we just need you to approve the application process and maybe choose somebody to be your signer, like this is an online application. I'm not sure what it's going to entail when I get to the end. And you should see a couple of forms that need to be filled out prior.
And our award is 278,893.
That's the first phase.
That's the first phase.
Yep. Your total is going to be like 557,000. The second part's to come in the summer of 22.
Discussion?
We need a motion to,
Yes.
Approve.
I move, Mr. Chairman, we approve the American Rescue Plan as presented.
And allow Laura to fill it out and Liz to sign it.
Was it you seconded it? Is that what you just said? Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm adding to his motion though, before I second it, to allow Laura to fill it out and you to sign it.
All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
2, Mr. Sample, Old Home Week update.
What? How you doing?
Good afternoon, sir.
My once a year visit. So first of all, I'll thank you all for what you do. I understand your
Oh, you
commitment.
want something?
I understand your commitment and the commitments put upon you. So thank you for that. Name's Roger Sample, and I am the Old Home Week Chairman. Events this year are pretty much same as the last prior years. There may be a day or so here or there that we've changed up very little. The only snafu I think that we had last year was in the meeting, we discussed the parking here in Monument Square. And we determined that we would save 4 spaces for the lumberyard, the hardware store, 2 in front, 2 across. And when we rolled up on Sunday morning, they had 2 of their vehicles parked in front of the town hall and a couple more in Monument Square. So it seemed like a slap in the face. So I put one of my vehicles in front of the hardware store and they still had spaces, but so that was, that was the only snafu we had there from the car show. But everything seems to be in check and moving along
So far.
so far. Any questions or concerns from the board?
We're having the parade and the floats and stuff.
What's that?
Parade and the floats. and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, the parade, the ABA actually runs the parade, but that is on the Saturday. The only difference is this Saturday, this year is the Kelly's 5K is actually started on Sunday, so there won't be a running 5K there Saturday morning, because that'll relieve a little bit of
Right.
thing. And I'm also not 100% sure about the boat show.
Are you having selectmen?
that's
in the-
on.
Is it definitely on?
That should be on, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I
on
okay.
think
there.
that's on.
It's on there. I read it on there.
I did too.
Yeah, they.
Antique boat
approved
show.
it.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Are you,
Yeah, we approved the permit.
are we putting selectmen in the parade? And if so, who? Got a chair in your float this year?
We'll get a spot for you, Birch, if you,
There you go.
you won't have to walk.
You're walking in
We
anyways.
still talk about the year that you rode in the boat. We made this beautiful boat. And it was a sure
I
winner.
remember.
But the problem with it was too realistic. They thought we just put a boat in the parade.
They thought he was towing a real boat.
Yep, it was like, I couldn't believe it.
Looked too good.
Yeah, oh, I mean, it was a lot of minds, it's not just me. There's a lot of minds
I
working
remember.
on this.
It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't
But,
good sitting on the action.
Yeah. Where,
Mr. Chairman?
where are you lining up?
They're gonna line up over in the elementary school.
Yeah.
In the parking lot and then come through Scott's.
Okay.
Or through Circle,
I
whatever.
wasn't quite clear on that, where you were lining up.
Yeah, they're coming through there. I told her, I said, oh, no, there'll be no problem. They'll have that roadway all back by parade time, but maybe not.
No, they run a little behind with the
Yeah.
rain.
Well, yeah, so the only question, and I guess it still remains, what do you call it here? The special permit, the special event permit. Do we need to do one of those, or does this?
No.
This,
You're town board.
This is a town
Okay,
committee
all right,
doing it, so
all right.
you're all right.
all right,
It's a
okay.
town committee.
You're all set.
We won't charge you for the permit.
All right, excellent. That was my big concern.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd just like to say I was the selectman's rep this year through the committee. The town of Alton, we're awful lucky. We have a lot of volunteer committees in this town and people that do over and above.
Yeah.
I was impressed with this committee, that they do more than just that book. They do advertising and
Oh, yeah.
get ads for them. It all has to get coordinated. People make phone calls and do the
A
different
lot of
things.
work in it.
And Roger, of course, he's right in the middle of it. But
Well, I always say, a lot of it's boilerplate, though.
That keeps his blood pressure down,
yeah, but this year you had the challenges
Yeah,
because
yeah.
last year we didn't have
Have
it.
it.
Right.
Nope.
But,
It's a good thing,
No,
and it's, everybody's pulling together.
We're lucky.
Good job.
So, okay,
All right. Thank you.
no further questions. I'll go have dinner and I'm gonna count the drip edge on the community house because I'm eating it at the clamshell.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing before I go. It almost seems on the GPS thing, I mean,
Yeah, come-
when I put you,
Gotta come up on the mic.
It's gonna be on a record.
on my my GPS, if I put in Waze, I'll be heading down the highway. It tells me if there's a cop ahead, if there's a hazard ahead, if there's this ahead, if there's that ahead. A lot of the people that come down Bay Hill come down because GPS told them to.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we're well aware.
Anybody that knows Bay Hill ain't gonna come down in the winter. So it almost seems as though maybe there's something that could be done, with those search engines
Yeah.
or stuff, so they don't come down.
Yeah, we're
Block the signal.
Yeah, and truckers, it's gonna, when they put it into their thing, if they're a trucker and it would come right up,
Yeah, 'cause
no
Josh
trucks
looked
right on their
into that,
thing, so they don't make that.
Josh look into that?
But that's very true. A lot of them are.
Yeah. We looked into it,
you,
Roger.
Roger.
It's almost impossible.
Dan Kelly's got a sign on it that says, your GPS is wrong. Turn around, go on the private section. I noticed that the other day. I drove down there. Big caution sign says, GPS is wrong.
Go home.
Go home. Go the other way.
All right. Number 3, Mr. Young on culvert drainage issues, 550 Drew Hill Road.
Evening.
Good evening, sir.
You doing, Gene?
The landowner at 550 approached the commission because the town holds an easement on that property. And his issue, I believe most of you at least know, this has quite a history. Runoff coming down Drew Hill. It drains onto his property, goes through a culvert that's underneath his driveway and down into Gilman Pond. And as development took place beyond his driveway uphill, the amount of runoff has increased. And he's got a 15-inch culvert under his driveway, which is inadequate at this point. And so there are a couple of issues. One is that he would like to replace the culvert with a larger one. He's willing to purchase the culvert. He'd like the town to do the installation.
Scott,
And that
come up.
involves this gentleman.
Yes.
And he and I have talked about it. Scott has been out to look at it. I believe you have some correspondence in your packets about this issue. So he came to us because he didn't want to do anything that would be contrary to the easement. And he just wanted, number one, to make sure that didn't. So the easement states very clearly that he has the rights to maintain his driveway. In fact, for 50 feet on either side of it. So no question that he can replace that culvert without our approval or anything else. He has the right to do so. Our concern is actually with runoff and sediment going in there. He stated that he has on numerous occasions had to shovel out the sediment from just above his culvert, where there's kind of a settling area there. So it seems to me that we're getting too much sediment coming down onto his property and possibly going right on through and right on down into Gilman Pond, which we don't want.
Right.
For all of the obvious reasons that we all know about, the cyanobacteria and so on and so forth. So number one, we have absolutely no objection to whatever's done with the culvert. That's I think between him and the town. Conservation Commission doesn't need to be involved. My only question is whether going from 15 to 18 inches going enough bigger.
So that's.
Scott just told
That
me
was
this
just what I was
evening
gonna
that-
ask, if 18 is gonna be
Yeah,
big enough.
we had a 2.5-inch rainstorm last Thursday and it overtopped the 15-inch culvert. And that was 2.5 inches in about 8 hours. We know it can do more than that. So, maybe we need to talk to the gentleman about even a bigger culvert. But from the Conservation Commission's point of view, we'd like to see some steps taken, and I don't know what they would be, and I'm not going to try to tell you how to do your job, to try to stop so much of that sediment from even getting that full.
Right.
We
Yeah, 'cause-
definitely don't want to get into the
We dug runoffs above that, right?
yeah, it's coming down. Apparently it comes down Drew Hill. I think at least 3 places where
Yeah,
it
we've dug in.
cuts off
Yeah.
and goes onto his property. Or do we need better catch basins at those points? Do we need a big catch basin somewhere? Whatever we can work out, the commission is all for doing it. If we want to stop the sediment.
Yeah, before we have a problem.
Yeah. And, we know the runoff's got to go down there because it's
Right.
going to end up in Gilman Pond one way or the other. We just need to clean it up before it gets there. So that's where we stand on it. And certainly those kinds of activities do not infringe on these. So we're happy with whatever gets done.
Scott, should you go up and look at this and see what we
Yeah,
could
I've been
possibly do?
I've been up and talked with the homeowner and talked with Gene briefly about it because of the easement, the conservation easement and such. There's no doubt if in fact a new culvert is installed there, the skew of the culvert pipe can be changed and the inlet itself can be modified in order to help settle that sediment out before it actually would go through the pipe. And then the difficult part is on the outlet or the outlet side of it. It may take some additional work in order to try to get that to plateau itself so that that settles again before it meanders its way all the way out to the pond. The idea would be that, you know, if we can get it so that it's slowed, as you know, in that area, the
Get like a
topography.
settlement pond in there.
Right. You know, if we can work that out. The only issue that I had was, you know, in talking with Gene and the property owner was that it's on private property. So it's something that, you know, I mean,
Well, we're in a catch 22 there because it's conservation property in the long run. So it's really owned by the townspeople, really.
Let Scott finish.
yeah, so that's the issue there is want to make sure that we have all proper permissions in order to do this. And potentially, if in fact, you know, it may be something you may want to have legal counsel, just make sure that we're all in the clear here as far as, you know, because even though he's willing to buy his culvert, and I'm sure he's very willing to, you know, buy whatever size may be recommended in this situation, is that, you know, you will be having, if you have the town workforces do it, it is expending town money on, even though you have a conservation easement for it, just making sure that that's clear, so that you don't want to get into a situation where you end up having everybody
Right.
that, you know, is asking for a culvert to be put in. We don't do driveway culverts unless it's, you know, a project that has it laid out as such, and the board has approved it. So that's the only issue there. I mean, we have people that have been trained in the best management practices of the installation of the pipes. I have the confidence that the staff can certainly install it properly. You know, the issues that have happened, I believe with the issues that Gene alluded to as far as an overtopping, generally, if you have an overtopping of a culvert on a municipal roadway, it's not approved to be changed without just by our own culvert maintainer permit by notification. This situation here, from talking with the property owner, generally it's been a situation where there've been heavy rains, and then you get leaves and things get in front of it. And, you know, the pipe doesn't take the water because it's plugged up, just like in any of these other
But
situations.
we're also running water above it into that area.
No doubt. There is those water turnouts that have been installed over the years, which do work very well. And it's best to have them, actually, if we can have them, because it is open land. And, but as you know, it's a steep slope, so it does collect, and it's made itself its own little river.
But it's also against town ordinance to run water onto people's properties. So that's the catch 22 that I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, you can run water on private property as long as it's already been pre-existent in that situation there, not anything new.
Not by town ordinance, you cannot run water onto somebody else's property. That's the way it's written.
Okay, we can debate that another time, but I mean, we don't, in any new practices that would occur now.
Right.
Clearly, we don't do that. If it's already been a pre-existing water turnout, then those are generally always maintained. Or would be maintained unless there was, you know, an issue that should arise from it. You never want to give up any of your drainage if in fact you have it and it's functioning, so.
Sports wishes have.
I have
Liz
one
comment.
question.
Go ahead.
If we increase the pipe over 18 inches, it's 15 now. What's that going to do for the road elevation,
Well,
driveway elevation?
as far as his driveway elevation, in order to get the adequate cover that he may need over his driveway, you know, we would have to definitely look at that. But on the other part of it is, if in fact we can do some work on the inlet and outlet as well, settling that pipe down in, that may help us as far as trying to keep things so that we don't have a rushing situation. In other words, if we can clean out an inlet area to let that water as it comes down off that big hill on New Hill Road, come down in and plateau in and pool a little bit, and then make its way through the pipe itself, and then we would be lower, so we wouldn't have as much of a drop off going down in the yard there. We'd have to play around with the grades in order to make it work that way.
Also, there's quite a bit of driveway distance on each side. If it had to be
If you had to-
Yeah.
build up over, it would be no problem.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of costs,
Right.
you know, material, that's all.
Would want Liz to get a hold of Jim to make sure we're all right on it first.
Yeah, liability
think so.
reasons to check on that.
That would definitely be the
Meantime,
proper
if-
procedure to go next.
Yep. And if, meantime, I think we ought to have Mr. Kidman figure out a plan for it.
And I'll catch up with you before I contact the town attorney.
Yeah, and I'm glad to,
Yeah.
Be
share.
part of that.
But you're
Yeah.
probably gonna have to explain it to Jim anyways to
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah,
I have to have
and
Gene too.
I did mention to Gene, because he and I have talked about it, as well as after I talked to the property owner, we've had conversations back and forth, and I did mention to him that
Yeah, the property owners asked
Gonna
a
make
few
sure that
times
we-
to have it looked at, so. I'm not sure how that's gonna work with being conservation,
I
But he's
haven't,
still
I haven't had
there,
to deal with it
so I'm
myself
not sure.
personally.
This is the first that I've heard
Yeah.
about it during the past week, so. Yeah. So did you want to make a motion to approve this conditionally, depending on legal counsel review?
That makes sense, doesn't it?
It's up to the board.
Otherwise, it'd
Yeah.
be brought back into us,
Right.
Well, it was gonna be after we get the legal opinion.
Yeah, but if we approve it pending the legal, it's a go.
Go ahead.
Can I just
Yeah.
bring up one quick point before? Is that this may necessitate, after the town administrator and I speak with legal counsel, that he may want to draft an agreement, for an example. If he says, yeah, this is something he's seen in the past and would be an approved action and those types of things there. Very similar to some of the other agreements that you've done relative to the, municipal trails and some of these others. I think it may fall along that same situation there. It'd be good to have, I'm guessing the town council would recommend it to be some form of a written document that
Right.
is signed and agreed upon by all parties.
If we do that, we're gonna have to have a public hearing on it.
So we would need a motion right now then.
No.
They would go to legal counsel first and get an opinion of legal counsel, and then come back to this board.
We're directed to.
You can do it that way if you'd like, or you can do, the motion conditioned upon legal counsel with any required documentation that would need to be created and signed by whoever you want to sign it. Me on your behalf, all of you,
I was gonna wait for. legal
whatever you want to do.
Well, again, I think it would make sense to wait for legal counsel
Sure.
and then make the decision after that.
Figure out what direction we're going in first.
We'll bring this back when it's ready to come back.
Yeah, we'll see what that says. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
very much.
Right, moving on, special event application, American Legion Chaos and Kindness.
See anybody here?
On 9/18/2021.
See
All
any-
three of them. No problem. Mr.
No, I
Chairman.
see no issues. It's a band.
Yep.
Basically.
Well, it's banned and it's a fundraiser.
It's a
big
fundraiser.
that they
Yep,
have.
yep. See any issues with that at all?
Motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the special event application for Chaos and Kindness to be held at American Legion, 164 Wolfboro Highway, Alton, New Hampshire.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Moving on, Alton Bay Alcoholics Anonymous rental fee waiver.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so just so that the board knows, this is usually an annual request to waive it, as they don't collect any fees to pay for any needed expenses.
Make a motion, we allow AA to use the Alton Bay Community Center for their meetings, waiving the fee. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Parks and Recs Department, Property Rental Policy Amendment approval. All right, Cal.
So there's a memo here, just basically summarizing that I was asked to provide recommendations for changes to the policy that was dated 1997 in order to meet the current needs of the town and just to address issues that need to be just addressed in regard to rules, fees, and the inclusion of non-community center property, which would be land and park property. Also that I reached out to 6 other towns to get what they're doing, what kind of rules they had, what kind of fees they had, and this is based on what I had collected for information. So in your packet should be the old policy, which was the 1997 policy.
Ask you something.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what I'm looking at is the policies. We're still at the $50 a day.
No, no. I think that's the community, that's the rental for
community center.
craft fair. I think that was craft fair. So the rental fees are $35 for private use and commercial use is $50. So the Alton Bay Community
what's-
Center is a valuable piece of property.
What's it cost us? Do they put a payment down in case of damage?
So that they, right now, the current policy is $50 security deposit. So the town is losing money because
Yeah,
people
how
are,
much does it cost us to go and wipe it down and clean it?
right,
It's gotta be more than $50.
Right, so she was starting to explain.
yeah.
All of that.
No, those are good questions. We've had issues. We've had issues, specifically, we've had a partition broken at the Pearson Road Community Center. We've had people, and this is what we find is people are using the town buildings because they don't want to have it at their house. So we have glitter, we have confetti, and sometimes it takes weeks, months, 6 months to clean this stuff up. And it's very discouraging for our staff that go in, they clean the building and they come in and they see what's left. And the $50 does not cover those costs. We've had people tape crepe paper, balloons to walls, and they get up on a table or something. And then instead of getting up on the table, they rip it down and then the paint peels off. So we had to repaint.
We're not getting
No.
paint.
Correct. We don't give them back the security deposit. And quite frankly, we don't really want to re-rent to them. It's for parties that are annual. People have their family functions. People are having Christmas, they're having Thanksgiving at these buildings. $35 is not very much money. And then they say they don't use the oven, so they don't use the kitchen. So to use the kitchen, it's an additional $10. So they're saying they're not using a kitchen
Let me ask you
to
this.
have a meal,
If they say they're not using the kitchen,
right?
can you tell if they used it?
We can't, I mean, you can tell if it's dirty,
Yeah.
but I can't argue that because I don't,
The gas is still on in the stove.
yeah, I mean, there's really no, it goes on, we trust people, to be honest.
Right. Now, what's your suggestion?
So the suggestion is, so there was the original policy, which was 1997. There's a policy that the original,
That's the updated one too.
yes,
Okay.
there was
That's more than fair.
yeah, there's a policy that we've been using for the last at least 6 or 8 years because that original policy was, the verbiage of it was just so much. So we condensed it. And then lastly, there was the recommendation, which was the last document, which is called property rental policy. And it also includes town property like Jones Field, or if people want to use basketball courts or Railroad Square Park, because we had people that wanted to use different pieces of property that we actually didn't have any kind of guidelines on. And this is all just recommendations. If you want to take time to read it over.
Actually, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate.
Yep, it's better than before.
Yep.
You're still getting a good deal.
Yes.
You rent
Yeah.
someplace for $200 for 4 hours, you
No,
can't.
no,
Right.
1 to 3 hours, $100.
Well, I think it
No,
makes a
no,
difference.
I think,
We gotta cover our costs.
Right.
Right.
That's the thing.
and definitely if people are damaging things, they're not coming back.
That's been my basically
been-
past practices. They're not eligible for re-rentals.
That 250 will cover
It'll cover,
cleaning and,
yeah, it would cover a good portion of it, or hopefully all of it.
right.
But if someone broke a partition, it probably would be more than that, but
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
then we'd have to hold them responsible.
would.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Director on the new property rental policy.
second. For discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Good job, Kelly.
Thank you. And would that be effective? You're welcome. Would that be effective tomorrow or?
Be effective as soon as we
right
sign.
now.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Now, we
It's in effect.
gave the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job on the concerts down there.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, next, selectmen's reports.
Not at this time.
Bob,
No,
Bob,
I just have one question.
selectmen reports, and he's got questions for us.
Well, I,
That's his selectman report. It's a question.
yeah, that's, well, it's easy.
Go ahead.
What's the status on Hurd Road on the solar? Have we heard any more?
Would you like me to answer that? They have been notified that the map copies are here for
Yeah.
pickup, and they have also been sent the set of maps electronically. So we're just waiting to hear back from them.
So we haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything.
That's it. I have no reports. That's your only report? All right, moving on, town administrator report. The floor is all yours.
Lucky me. All right, I have two things to do with Atlantic Broadband. I sent you out an email today with a dozen items on it from last week's meeting. Did you have it at your seat? And you probably read it in your email.
Yes.
So the first question I have is in regards to renewing the franchise agreement, is there anything you want changed in the franchise agreement?
The money part. The more money, the better.
So
I know.
I don't think we'll have, luck with that, but
I know.
Nice try though, Virgil.
there, we don't have the authority to change either the amount that they charge the customers. That's not in our authority.
Too bad, because that's outrageous too.
So,
So the better question is, what are we allowed to change if we were going to change them?
right, so that was in the previous email that I sent out to you, which I do not have with me, but basic contractual items such as, the length of the contract, the authority of the town. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head when I sent that out to you about 4 weeks ago. And actually, if you look at number well, I can't find it right now, but the attorney that's representing us advises it's a good contract, the one that we have right now.
but 10, I think it is that you're looking for.
Other questions?
I have no problem with it.
So I just need to, I have to take it back to the next meeting
Mhm.
to see if there's anything that you want changed in the contract.
That's what you would take back
Or-
with you
or
for the
if-
next meeting.
Right, or if you're okay with everything as it is
Yeah, because
moving
you tell us the
forward.
current contract, even the lawyers are saying the current contract is a decent contract.
Yeah,
Yeah, so. Did a good job the first time.
yeah.
The only
Yeah.
question I had was, it says here currently renews every 3 years. The industry senses they like 10 years, but sometimes it is 7 years. 7 to 10 years is right in the average to aim for.
Mhm. And that would be for a full new contract. 7 to 10 years is what you want to aim for.
Yeah.
And that's what,
That's what you're aiming for?
yes, yes. The one that we're in right now is a 3-year thing, which is kind of like a little temporary thing until you can organize to have a full contract renewal. So it used to be 20 years, but
Okay.
the industry is changing.
Oh.
More people are going, as I indicated in here, more people are going to the internet versus cable television. Or they're going to Dish, which is, through internet and things of that nature.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Liz, it says currently 5 towns in the Lakes region provide JPEG channel access. What
Yes.
is that exactly?
That is when you have a designated television channel, which would record these meetings and play them over and over again, all the different board meetings. And all
We don't have that.
we don't. We used to years ago, and at some point, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 12 years ago, it became, it's expensive.
Mhm.
And so several $1,000s was paid to this organization in Laconia to do that for all the towns. And over the years, it's kind of dwindled down. And there are only 5 left in the Lakes
That's still
region
good.
that partake of that.
Because
Okay.
they went from 9,000 a year, they jumped to 22,000 a year.
Oh,
And that's when we all got good internet in and stuff. We said, why are we paying that if we can just put it right to the internet?
And so we're doing
That's
it
what we did.
ourselves now.
right,
at a
right. So
much
we don't have to
lesser-
worry about that, and that's not in the contract anyway.
Right,
So we're not paying for that.
right.
They had designated
And
channels
I think
for
this is
us.
fine.
You need a motion for that, Liz?
No, a general consensus is fine if everyone is kind of in agreement with
Bob?
that.
I'm
you
glad
feel
you're
it?
doing it.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, any of you are
Doing a good
welcome.
job with it, too.
Any of you are welcome to attend the meetings. They're once a month. They're going to go to every other month. You can ride with me, take your own vehicle,
Doing a
whatever you
great
want to
job.
do. Thank you.
I don't
So-
wanna go to one.
So I have one other item in regards to Atlantic.
Oh,
I'm good, yeah.
yeah, full consensus.
Okay, thank you. The second question that I have is, the attorney wants to know if there are any areas in the town where Atlantic broadband either doesn't serve or can't get to. Are there any areas that you're aware of in the town of Alton? I don't know of any off the top of my head. I haven't really
One way we could
heard.
do that is put a quick ad in the paper and ask people.
Well, we have done two
No.
ascertainment notices.
Oh.
And we did receive 4 responses back, although none of them had to do with a lack of service from Atlantic. I'm just, asking the board if you know of any areas.
No,
Not that I know of.
Okay. All right.
no, I think they've done a good job of covering the town.
Yeah, wherever MetroCast was, because they bought out MetroCast, so, and that's all I have for TA report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, approval of minutes. July 19th.
Just had one concern there, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I was not present at that meeting. It's noted I was excused,
Yeah.
but then on page 3, Selectmen's report, Bob Holt has nothing to report. Maybe.
Well, you didn't because you weren't here.
I know, no problem.
You
I can bite the bullet.
radio in?
Huh?
You didn't radio in?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the July 19th minutes.
Second.
Are we gonna remove Bob Holt sentence
Wasn't there. Cross that.
just so they're legal? I'll second Brock's Motion.
I already
All those in
seconded.
favor?
I already-
Oh, you
I already
did?
seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
I'll abstain, Mr. Chairman,
okay.
was not there.
July 2021.
This is the executive, right? Oh,
This is the site visit
Site
on
visit
School
meeting.
Street.
yeah, it's a parking lot, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Make a motion to approve the July 21st, 2021 Alton Central School Parking Lot meeting.
Second. Discussion, changes. All those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
I'll abstain again, Mr. Chairman. I was not available.
okay. Discretionary action. Approval of consent agenda. Motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda for August 2nd, 2021.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Well, you gotta have a second.
All right,
I'll second it.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move to public input. 5 minutes per person on any government or town business. How did we know? Down there filling out that book.
I'll talk real quick because there's a couple items on here. One is I want to make sure, I know the town policy's out with all the entire height, with all the crews. The employees have it. Ruben mentioned about the grandfather policy. I'd like to be able to see whether or not that's going to be implemented in any part of the policy. I understand the Board of Selectmen mentioned high and low. High and low on wages. The step and track program was based on 20 years. What happens when you go over that? I think this was brought before the Board of Selectmen under me. Because I wasn't going to get a raise because I was over top of the scale and it was allowed. I want to make sure that no other employees, because it's high and low based on 20 years. Is it based on 25 years? Is it based on 30 years? So do we have any employees that are going to go to that point, and is there going to be an argument about it? Or should it come to the Board of Selectmen for approval if anybody goes over the high? That would be a question on that. And since Selectman Lentworth was behind the 3.5%, that might put some people over top of that high wage thing that you put in. I thought it was for hiring only, depending on experience. But that could be different. Getting away from the town policy, Halls Hill Road. The entire traffic from Route 140 was diverted onto Halls Hill Road because 140 was closed. I had 8 phone calls. Residents of Halls Hill Road wanting to know what was going on. I talked to the Public Works Director who was he was on vacation, but he was nice enough to answer the phone and talk to me. I'd get overtime for that. When I called the town hall, nobody knew about it. They did this once before on Roberts Cove Road. I was on vacation I'm not sorry, 11D. When I came back, I walked into the trailer down there and asked, what are you doing? You got ledge work going on. You're diverting everybody down my road. Oh, it's not your road. Yes, it is my road. Did you take any pictures of the roadway prior to diverting all the traffic that went on it? As a concerned taxpayer, one of the people that called said there was 14 tractor and trailers almost back to back running up over Halls Hill Road. It's not designed for that either in Alton or in Gilmington. So what kind of damages was done to that road because they diverted it all day long? They never opened it up till late in the day around 4 o'clock. And I think I called the town hall. The only reason I found out is I called District 3 in Guilford, and the dispatcher was nice enough to call me back and said they were opening it. I think there ought to be some type of policy within the Board of Selectmen saying, if the state of New Hampshire is going to divert traffic in an emergency onto a town road, that photographs should be taken of the road prior to, and then inspected afterwards for any damages. Otherwise, who's paying for it? The taxpayers of Alton. I'll almost guarantee you that no pictures were taken prior and nobody cared afterwards. And the dissemination of information to the residents were not there, because understand the town administrator wasn't notified. None of the selectmen were notified. So I'm just concerned about, are they damaging our roads? And if they are, who's paying for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Richard Shea, 84 Roberts Cove Road. I have an ongoing interest in the reconstruction of Roberts Cove Road, and I appreciate your support of the boring tests, small but necessary step. I wonder if you could help me out with my recollection of several meetings ago, probably in the March or early April timeframe, where the question was discussed about priorities and whether Roberts Cove Road should be the next priority, or I think Lily Pond Road was mentioned as one under consideration. My impression at the time, although I don't think there was a vote on it, was the consensus of the board was that Roberts Cove Road should receive priority. And I believe that the request was made of the town administrator to determine whether or not any funds might be available that could be used to fund the engineering phase of the project. After that, I lost track of it. And I don't know if that's because I missed a few meetings or nothing further happened, but I wonder if there's any update on that.
I don't believe so. I don't believe we've done, have we
There is no update at this time. It is being looked into.
being looked into, being worked on?
So there's hope.
Oh, yes,
All right.
we haven't forgotten.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It all takes time with government.
Stan.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we will close public input. Don't have to go back in the non-public.
I don't.
I'm just gonna wait for, I'm gonna wait for full board. Let's see what fair way to do it. Okay. No other discussion? I will close the meeting, ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I seconded it.